Now, when you hear the question, what's your favorite basketball movie? You may get answers like, He Got Game, Space Jam, and White Man Can't Jump. See, these are all good answers, but let me ask you another question. What happens when you put together basketball, self-worth, shoes, destiny, father figures, Morris Chestnut, and Crispin Glover? You get the film Like Mike, starring Lil Bow Wow. Now, you may just say, oh, Scott, this is just a cheap cash grab basketball film. Marketing with one of the hottest rappers of the time. And I would laugh in your face if you had said something as idiotic as that. Like Mike is more than a film. It's a way of life. It's a religion. This film is a masterpiece. To start off this review, I just want to talk about this soundtrack. One of the best film soundtracks you will ever hear, provided by our lead, Lil Bow Wow. The first time I heard this one song, Basketball, it was as if my body was possessed and I had no control. I was just up and I was dancing. I love this song so much, I want it played at my funeral.
They're playing basketball
all around the world. To the beach, y'all. Let's go. All around the world. Y'all know this is so that. To the beach, y'all. Yeah.
Basketball is my favorite sport. I like the way they dribble up and down the court. I keep it so fresh on the.
Anyway, Lil Bow Wow lives in an orphanage that's run by Crispin Glover, aka George McFly. Bow Wow has two friends, Reg and Murph. Reg being played by Brenda Song. Keep that in mind for later. Also keep Crispin Glover in mind for later, as a matter of fact. The orphanage bully, surprisingly, and I presume to be his breakout role, Jesse Plemons, aka Todd from Breaking Bad. Now this is the last time I'm going to ask you, but remember that. A donation box then comes into the orphanage being carried by some nun lady, and she says that it belongs to a famous basketball player. And Bow Wow's sifting through the box. He finds these sneakers, right? They're Nikes, and they are magically his size. And he asks the nun lady, oh, which basketball player is it? She responds, the tall bald one. And Bow Wow's asking because he finds the faded initials of MJ on the tongue of the sneakers. That's Michael Jordan. Later, Jesse Plemons takes the shoes and throws them on top of a power line. And Bow Wow decides he's gonna go get them tonight. Tonight also happens to be the night of a giant lightning storm. So, Bow Wow's like, I'm gonna go right now. So he hops out of bed with Reg and Murph, and they all walk outside, and Bow Wow's climbing up the tree. He makes it to the top, he's climbing on the power line, and as soon as he grabs the shoes, they get struck by lightning. And Bow Wow falls to the ground, but he's okay. He walks it off, and then goes straight into the room, and then goes back to bed. We cut to the next night. We see the kids hustling outside of the Staples Center during a Knights game. And the kids are hustling, trying to sell candy, and Tracy Reynolds, aka Morris Chestnut, is out there, and it comes to the shot. The winning or losing shot. You know what Tracy does? He messes it up. Takes a shot, misses it. And then, after this devastating loss, Calvin, who was Lil Bow Wow, I'm going to use them interchangeably, shows up and sees the coach in the parking lot, and he tries to sell candy to the coach, and Calvin says that the money might not even be going to the orphanage, and in turn, the coach gives him tickets to the next night's game. So we cut to the next night. They're there, they're in the audience, and the Knights, unsurprisingly, lose again. And Tracy is held after the game to do a little competition one-on-one with somebody that they choose from the audience. And out of pure luck, Bow Wow was chosen. He goes on the court, and somebody tells him, remember to tie your shoes. So as he's tying his shoes, Bow Wow prays, make me like Mike. He gets up, and Tracy is going to let him score twice. So, you know, everything's normal, having fun, having a ball, if you will. And he scores twice on Tracy. And Tracy isn't going to let it happen again. And, you know what? No, I can't even describe it to you. You gotta watch this scene for yourself. I mean, look at it. It's a masterpiece of film. Just look.
Yeah. Now basketball is my favorite sport. I like the way they dribble up and down the court. I keep it so fresh on the microphone. I like no interruption when the game is on. I like slam dunk to take me to the hoop. My favorite.
After that, Calvin is immediately signed on to the Knights. At first, as a gimmick, you know, just to bring in new people for the audience. And eventually, Bow Wow starts becoming a star player on the team. And everybody's liking that, except for Tracy. And it turns out that when they're moving to hotels and stuff, Tracy and Calvin have to room. And Calvin's really excited because he looks up to Tracy. But Tracy isn't happy because, you know, Calvin was just balling on him. And, you know, their bond starts off pretty weak. I mean, like, they're not having fun. I mean, Calvin's trying to have fun. Tracy's not. Now, their bond starts to grow a little stronger when Tracy goes out to the pharmacy and brings Bow Wow along with him. He's going to the pharmacy because he needs his allergy medication, and he's also going for some sleeping pills because Calvin snores like a mofo in this movie. So there's also this hot pharmacist sitting behind the counter. And Tracy, while looking at her, admiring her, accidentally mixes up which pills he's taking and accidentally takes the sleeping pills. And Calvin ends up having to drive them home and almost gets in multiple head-on collisions. And they finally return back to the hotel. They make it inside, and Tracy finds out the next day that Calvin is benched. And when he asks why, he finds out that the reason he's benched is because of him. And, you know, he's nice to Calvin from then on because he stuck his neck out for him and drove him home. And this is where things start getting a little nicer for the movie. After this scene of, you know, Murph and Calvin, you know, growing apart from each other, we see Calvin goes over to Tracy's mansion to, you know, get some help with his geometry homework. And the way they go about this scene is to help Calvin learn geometry, they paint all over the house. Like, this really nice mansion is covered in, like, orange paint. And Calvin starts putting paint on the windows, and this isn't even the weird part yet. You know, they're just having fun right now. But the weird part comes when Tracy splashes paint all over Calvin, and then Calvin does the same, and then it's like this minute-long scene of them just covering each other in paint. And then Call Me Carson shows up, and he's there now, and he needs to borrow $49.50 for the taxi fare that he took here. And, you know, that's pretty funny. And then we get back to the weirdest scene in the entire movie, where they just cover each other in paint. And then they jump in Tracy's pool, and then the scene ends. It's so weird. Then more things happen, like Tracy and Calvin are having a falling out because, Tracy doesn't like his dad. And Calvin can't believe that Tracy has a dad, and he won't even talk to him. He hates him. So his idea of bringing them together is he's going to bring over Tracy's dad to his house. And he brings him over, and Tracy tells Calvin to get him out of here now. Pretty upset. And they're out of sync, for a little bit. And that leads to them to start losing games. And, nothing can fix their bond. After they have their falling out, the only person that Calvin can really trust is Murph. And he has to take his sneakers off, right? Because he's going to meet with this new family, who's literally the family from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I mean, that's like a running gag in this movie, is that the parents from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air are here. And, he gives the shoes to Murph to guard them and make sure nothing bad happens to them. And Murph decides he's going to try on the shoes, and he's going to play a little mini hoop. And he misses the shot while playing mini hoop, and he's talking to this picture of his dead mother, which is the only one that he has. And, it's a really heartfelt scene. And then, all of a sudden, Biddleman crashes the party and then takes Murph practically hostage, along with Jesse Plemons, after they have this exchange, where of getting the shoes, Crispin Glover is going to give him a family. So, they have Murph practically hostage, and they ask him where the shoes are. And Murph is like, I'll never tell, Calvin is my best friend. And the way they get information out of him is literally by burning the only picture of his mother that he has. Like, this movie gets dark. And that's why I love it. It's so unpredictable. And eventually, Murph cracks under the pressure. He can't stand to just watch the only memory of his mother be gone. And Crispin's whole plan in this is to get a lot of money. And the reason that he's taking the shoes now instead of earlier is because contract renewals are up. And when Calvin gets his contract renewed, the beneficiary for all the money isn't going to be Biddleman anymore. So Crispin Glover has this plan where he's going to take the shoes and he's going to bet $100,000 against the Knights in the next game, which is the game to get to the playoffs, by the way. And his plan of rigging the game is to take the shoes, put them in his safe, so Calvin can't play, and the Knights will never win the game. And, this whole thing is going pretty well until Calvin finds out. And he enlists the help of everybody in the orphanage to get the shoes back. So what do? They tie up Crispin Glover. I mean, they on some BTK stuff or something, because he is just tied up tight. Like, he cannot move. Jesse Plemons shows up, and he's like, what's going on here, huh? And Crispin tries to convince him to untie him. And, it seems like it's going to work until Biddleman calls him an idiot. And if there's one thing that Todd isn't, is an idiot. So he remembers, Rayman style, the safe combination. So he unlocks the safe, tosses the shoes to Bow Wow, and Bow Wow's like, okay, we gotta get out of here so I can get to the game. And they hop on the electric scooters that, Bow Wow had bought earlier. I didn't mention that, but he bought them electric scooters earlier. So everybody's riding to the playoff game, and eventually Crispin gets free. And he calls up the guys that he made the bet with, and he's like, yo, they gone. And he's like, what? And then they start chasing down the kids who are driving on the street, and they just try to run them over. And at one point, you think, oh no, all hope is lost, when the shoes fly off of Calvin's shoulder and into the road. But who is it? Who's our champion? Oh my, is that Chad Murph picking up the shoes? That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The big Chad Murph saves the day. redemption. Gives the shoes to Calvin. Calvin skirts on over into the stadium. But not before one last interaction with Biddleman. And they have this dialogue, this sinister dialogue. Calvin kills him. Look at this. He's dead 100%. So Calvin makes it into the stadium. He's there. He gets on the court. And at first, the coach isn't going to let him play because nobody skips 3/4 of a game and plays. That's what he says. And, the team isn't having any of it. They say he's the only reason they got here. He's the only reason they succeeded and made it to the playoffs anyway. So he's there, and they're playing the game, and everything's going well until there's a giant dog pile on top of Calvin, and we look at the shoes, and they're ripped. This is it for Calvin. He's done. So on the final play, they're 1 point away. And whatever happens next, Bow Wow retires. That's what he says. And he passes the ball to Tracy on the last play. And you think Tracy's going to choke up like he did the first time. No. Tracy makes the shot and wins the game. The Knights make it to the playoffs. They did it. They did it. So, everybody's happy. Bow Wow's achieved everything he ever wanted. He made it to the NBA. He played with some of his favorite players. He did it all. And he's finally content when he finds the thing that he's wanted from the beginning of the movie. Family. Vin Diesel style. And he finds that in Tracy at the end of the movie. When Tracy adopts him, Murph. So Murph and Bow Wow get adopted by Tracy, and they have this fun little scene at the end where, they're having this little fight, and they're jumping between the two beds, and, Tracy's about to leave the room, and, after everything Bow Wow has overcome, he overcomes his fear of the dark, and Tracy shuts off the light, and everything's nice. And we zoom in, we see this picture of Brenda Song, and she got adopted. Now, this is a really nice ending and all, but this is going to lead into the thing I was talking about earlier, which is going to change your perception of this film forever, okay? So, get ready for that. So, what I told you last time is, I'm here to prove the fact that this is going to change your perception of this film forever. What I'm about to tell you is going to change your perception of this film forever. Ready? Here we go. Okay, so we see at the end of the movie that Brenda Song, who is Reg in the movie, gets adopted by these parents. And if you zoom in on the picture of the family, you can see that the dad looks pretty similar to the dad who is in Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. To be specific, London Tipton's dad. So, it is my working theory that London Tipton is Reg, okay? Who's to say that in the last name change when she became a Tipton, maybe they changed the first name as well? Who's to say? Anyway, bing, bong, boom. Next theory. Okay, here we go. So, we all know the story of Back to the Future 2, right? Alternate timeline. Biff marries Lorraine instead of George. So this picks up right there. So George, is jealous of Biff. Biff got his dream girl. So what's he going to do to get her? He's going to, help the children, see if that'll, get some points with her. And when that doesn't work, he's still very jealous of Biff's wealth. And he finds his success and getting wealth in that of Calvin, Mr. Calvin Cambridge. Anyway, so once he finds out that, he can make a cash cow out of this, he's milking it for all he's got. He's gonna make all this money, and he's gonna try to get Lorraine back. But here's the thing: he never does. So out of anger and frustration, he tries to get as most money as possible, just to, keep the wealth going. And he steals the shoes, he rigs the game. And, my theory is that Biff is in relation with the betting guys. And when, George can't pay up on the bet, he gets shot and killed. See, because Reg says at the end of the movie that nobody's seen Biddleman and there was something about a bet that he couldn't pay. So it's my theory that George is still dead in Back to the Future 2. That's how he dies. And bada bing bada boom, just proved that it's an alternate timeline to Back to the Future 2. Okay, third and last theory. This one involves Jesse Plemons. Ready? Here we go. So we all know Todd from Breaking Bad, right? And we can presume, with Jesse Plemons. Jesse Plemons has been alone in the world. It's been him against the world. And the only way he can really get attention is by acting up. So he does this in, throwing Calvin's sneakers over the power line, doing all this stuff, and then helping Biddleman get the shoes and promise him a family, which is all that he really wants. And I guess Todd really does find a family in the neo-Nazis that we see him with in Breaking Bad. Yeah, that's right, baby. Breaking Bad is a sequel to Like Mike. And so was The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and it's also an alternate timeline to Back to the Future 2. Baby, just proved it all. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to sign off for this one. This is the end of my Like Mike review, and, I'll see y'all later. Wait. Oh. Who is that? Is that Lil Bow Wow?
Yes, Scott, it is me, Lil Bow Wow.
Bow Wow, what are you doing here?
Scott, I'm here because you've solved my movie. You've cracked it. You've figured it out.
I knew I had something going here. I knew I cracked the code. I just never thought you would, come here to congratulate me. I mean, this is so crazy.
Scott, I know it may seem a little crazy, but I've actually come here to tell you something. Something important. Scott, I needed to tell you that... Oh my god.
Oh my god! Bow Wow!
They're playing basketball.
All around the
We
world.
love their basketball.
To the beach,
They're
y'all.
playing